We are ready to get into InDesign. Um, we have downloaded images, we have changed resolutions, image modes, and file formats. We have downloaded our fonts, and we have figured out how to load those fonts and check to see if they're available in InDesign. Now we're ready to work on the project. Now I do need to reference this project and what it entails, so I would recommend you do the same. So I'm going to go to class sessions and I am going to look at the project guidelines, and I want to make sure that I am starting with the right format first. It says that this is supposed to be 7 inches by 5 inches and it's a horizontal format. Okay, so that has to be what it is. Those are the instructions. You know, if you're given a certain ad space to do in a newspaper, you aren't going to be able to monkey around with that format. It's a set size and a set space. So we open InDesign. If you don't have InDesign CS6, previous versions will work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new document. If this window is not up, you go to File, New, Document. But when you first open InDesign, this window comes up and you can just click on Document. Now, InDesign by default may already have some things selected. So one thing it has selected is facing pages. This is not a book, and books have facing pages, so we're going to uncheck facing pages. Another thing is it will probably have letter or some other predetermined page size, and we don't want that. We want 7 inches by 5 inches. And here it's got this weird thing, 51P0. That's 51 picas, 0 points. Type is measured in points and picas. Cool thing is you can simply type in 7IN for that width, and for the height you can type in 5IN. And it will automatically convert it to picas and any remainder points that are left over. Now I will probably go ahead and separate this into 3 columns. I don't know if you've heard about the rule of thirds, but it's nice to start with 3 columns in something this simple. Margins are good. 3 picas is equal to 1/2 inch. You do want margins. You don't want your type going right to the edge unless you're trying to get some impression of crowding something. So this is a print document. Facing pages is off. It's a custom size of 7 inches by 5 inches, which converts to 42 picas by 30 picas. I have gone ahead and made it 3 columns, and I've left the margins at 1/2 inch or 3 picas. Here's what I have. Now, this area is your live page area in InDesign. The black line does contain all printable area. So if it's inside the black line, it's going to print. If it's outside the black line, unless you tell it to print a bleed, it will not print outside the black line. Some people get confused and think the black line is, I don't know what they think it is. They think that the pink line is the edge of the page. That is not true. These are just grid lines with ample margin for thumb space, for type. You don't want type going right to the edges. You can have imagery going right to the edge, which is the black, or beyond the edge. But your type usually stays within this grid. Now, we did load some fonts. I also have images ready from previous videos. Now, I'm going to go ahead and place an image in here. But before I do, I'm going to probably start working with layers. Now, I like working with layers because I can turn them on or off, and if I want to work independently and not have accidentally click on some stuff and mess it up, I like working layers. So if you don't see your layers panel, you can go to Window and choose Layers, and that panel will come up. Now layer 1 is a predetermined layer. It has to start with 1 layer, so it's already got layer 1. I'm going to rename that by double clicking on it, and I'm going to call it Image. Okay, so Image is on the first layer, and I can create another layer by clicking on this little dog-eared page icon. This is the Create New Layer button. Now this is a Create New button for many things. In this case, it happens to be a layer. Layer 2 comes up. I'm going to double click on that, and I'm going to call it Type. So one layer is going to have my image, the other layer is going to have my type. So when I'm wanting to work on the image layer, I need to click on the image layer. Now, to place an image in InDesign, which I do have on my desktop, many images in my folder called Jump, so you've already seen this, assuming you've actually watched the video. I'm going to place either one of these or even both of them. These are those cliff images. Okay. So I do not open them and then copy and paste. That is not the way we do it in the industry. Do not copy and paste things from other software into InDesign. We always use File, Place. Keyboard shortcut, Command D. On a PC, that'd be Control D. File, Place. Then you go find the image. Now, I'm finding the image. It's on the desktop. It's in my folder called Jump. I click on the image file. Whoop, not the JPEG. I'm using TIFFs. So you have to, maybe I should create a separate folder for TIFFs. I hit open, and this is called a loaded cursor. I click roughly where I want the image to go. It's not quite big enough for the page, real close though. So I can increase it slightly. You don't want to take an image that's real small and increase it much, but this is really close. So hold down Shift and Command on a Mac or Shift and Control on a PC. So I have those held down right now. Then with the selection tool, looks like a black arrow, I can click and drag and make that image bigger. Now the reason why I hold down Shift and Command and not just Command, Command will stretch your images. You do not want to use stretch graphics. Do not use graphics that are out of proportion. Now I can click and move this image anywhere I want to using the selection tool. If I accidentally click on this target, that is also known as the, what is it called? Content grabber, which kind of can be a pain. The content grabber moves what's in the box, so the box is still there. It moves and crops whatever's in the box. If you don't like the content grabber and it gets in your way, you can always tell InDesign to hide it by going to View, Extras, Hide Content Grabber. What we use for the content grabber instead is the white looking arrow tool, which is called the direct selection tool, and that moves the content of the box. It doesn't move the box itself, it moves the scan, but it does not move the bounding box, which is that blue box. Now I'm going to hit Command Z and get it back to where it was. There we go. Now if I hit the W key, and this is the same on PC or Mac, assuming I'm not in a type box, this will give me the print preview. So here's the print preview. If I were to print now, what this would look like. It does not print the guides or grids. It would just print the image. Now I'm ready to play with type. Now if I don't want to move my image around, I can click on the image layer and click in the blank box next to the eyeball. That is the locking mechanism. So if I wanted to move this now, I can't. I'm clicking and dragging and nothing's happening. Now I'm going to go to the type layer. And what I'm going to do is I like to set my type out here, especially if the image is so busy. So I grab the type tool. Oh, there's some new tools to InDesign. I have to look. These two I haven't used yet, but we're not going to worry about those yet. This new type tool, or old type tool rather, I can click and drag and draw a box, and my word is jump. And so I just type the word jump in after I draw that box. Now notice that the bounding box on this one is red. And you're wondering, well, why is that? Because we had blue bounding boxes before. Don't know if you noticed, but when I was on this layer, if I were to have drawn a type box that's blue bounding box, well, InDesign, it automatically assigns a color to a layer. So for my image layer, it was automatically assigned blue. For my type layer, it's automatically assigned red. Okay, now I'm going to unlock that layer, get rid of that box, lock it back, go back to my type box. Okay. Now you want to play with different typefaces, so you want to have loaded a few. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, so I'm going to select the type. I can double click on it. I'm holding down Shift and Command, and on a PC this would be Shift and Control, and I'm holding down the greater than symbol, which is found on the period key on the keyboard. This really increases the size of that and gets it to fit better within that type box. What you don't want is you don't want giant type boxes and just a little bit of type in them. You want to nestle the type within the type box. If it disappears, that means that the box is too small for the type. So just increase that box size. Another way to increase type real quickly is once you have your box in position, is hold down Shift and Command. On a PC this would be Shift and Control. You have to hold down both. Don't just hold down Control. It'll bring things out of proportion. And you can click and drag, and there you have a quick way to increase your type. I'm going to copy this. If you hold down the Alt key, whether it's PC or Mac, and drag, it copies and pastes. So you no longer have to go to Edit and copy. Oops, excuse me, Edit, Copy. Let me undo that. Edit, Copy, and Edit, Paste. And you notice when it pastes, it pastes it wherever it wants, usually right in the dead center of your visual area. So I like just clicking on something, holding down the Alt key, and dragging it. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of different type choices here because of the amount of time that would take. So I am going to play around, however, with uppercase, lowercase, and a mix of upper and lowercase. And you can see that when I used all uppercase, the bounding box is too small. Oops, don't let it rotate on you, by the way. Oh, no wonder the bounding box is too small. There we go. All right. Now, we have a bigger challenge than what you might think here. We have an image with a lot of texture. So as soon as I take this type and I put it over this image, it starts to lose the effect. So we may have to put the type somewhere else, such as down here. And again, I'm holding down Shift and Command, or on a PC it's Shift Control, and I'm clicking and dragging. You can see how and I'm letting it off. They're not selected now, not Shift and Control now. I'm just moving stuff around. You can see how there's a lot of ease to InDesign once you know some of these keyboard shortcuts. Again, Shift and Command to move the box or to adjust the box, and then to move it, you just click and drag it. I'm going to hit the W key because I'm not in a text box right now, and this is what this would look like. Now this is pretty boring. I don't particularly care for this typeface for this. I just didn't even choose any typeface. It was already chosen for me. Now one of the quickest ways to go through a bunch of typefaces and look at them and see how they feel for any specific word you're using is to triple click on the word, bring up the type control panel. Now this is not the type control panel. This is the regular control panel. I want to type a panel. So I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to bring up Type and Tables, and I'm going to bring up the Character panel, Command T. I want to call it the type because the keyboard shortcut. So this Character panel comes up. I'm going to move it, click and drag it. And here you can actually cycle through all the loaded fonts. So I have this selected with the type tool, the word jump, and then I highlight whatever font name or typeface is in there. Now with the arrow up or arrow down key, you can see that it just went, I arrowed up and it now has a different typeface. Okay, so I click on that, highlight it, arrow up. Now once you do that once, you can just keep on doing it. So you can see in this area right here how I'm clicking on the arrow key and it's changing the typeface. Okay, well, that's an interesting typeface. So if you like what you have, maybe you like that type. I like that typeface. Not sure why, but it just seems fitting. And I'm going to excuse me, I'm going to hold down the Alt key and I'm going to drag this over here again. I might even hit the W so I can see a little bit more on my pasteboard. There we go. Highlight this text, highlight the name of the typeface, and I'm going to hit the arrow down key. I'm just going to, or arrow up key is what I was using. I'm going to cycle through a few of the typefaces that are loaded. Now, just because it's loaded doesn't mean it's good or appropriate. So I want something that just kind of is inviting me to jump off of that cliff. I don't want to, I'm not really looking for something that's shouting at me. So this takes a while. Well, that's, I don't know. That might work too. So try out different ones. I'm going to hit the W key again. So here's jump with this typeface, which I believe is impact, which is a pretty overused typeface. That just doesn't feel to me the same. This one I think was nice because it feels like we're on some sort of island, and this feels like it has a little bit of, I don't know, personality for an island cliff. Okay. Now it's a little big for that space again, so I'm going to hold on Shift and Command, click and drag. I'm going to put it in position. There we go. Now this isn't kerned. Actually, most lower cases don't need to be kerned, but it doesn't look too bad. But if you need to kern it, which it is a requirement you kern stuff, you triple click on it, and up in the control panel for the character, the A is character, the backwards P is paragraph. Where it has the AV with a diagonal line, this is kerning. You can float your cursor over it and it might tell you. Right now it's metrics, but if I go optical, you'll see some adjustments. Let me zoom into that. Let me go back to metric. So optical helps a lot. It takes out, kerning is a fine-tune adjustment of space between two characters. Not all characters between two. It's especially important you kern, well, anything that's a headline. Let me hit the W key. Anything that is all caps definitely needs kerned. Basically kerning, like if I'm looking at this particular group of letters, it's not too bad, but I'm like, oh, there's a lot more white space here, it feels, than maybe here. Not a ton. So I can either manually do it, I can even create what's called a custom ligature. A custom ligature, a ligature is when two letters touch to create one symbol. Now, the only problem with creating some of these ligatures is it may create a legibility issue. Letters may start looking like something else. So this is a very, very tightly kerned word, and I've created a lot of custom ligatures. And I think it's still readable as or legible as the word jump. Now, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back to the kerning of metrics, which was what it was before. And you can see the difference that kerning makes. Some people like this, some people don't. Now, as far as something that might be a little bit more optically acceptable, I will click from metrics to optical, and it will tighten up some areas and loosen up others. I still kind of like what's going on here with the blending of the letters. So, and I really would like that tightened up a little bit more. Now you can do tracking if you want to tighten up everybody the same amount. There's tracking, so sometimes you both kern and track. Now this is tight but not touching, and this is called tight and touching. T and T, tight not touching, and this is TT, tight and touching. Okay, T and T. All right, now I'm going to hit Command, or in a PCB control, 0, not O. O makes you want to open up another document, so I'm going to cancel that. Command 0 zooms out to see the whole document, not the stuff on the pasteboard. Now if I hit the W key, the only thing it's going to print is this. Now if I wanted to test and see if this typeface and this setting was nice, I can bring it down, adjust its size. Again, that's Shift and Command, or Shift and Control, click and drag. Hit the W key. I don't know. I really did like the lowercase. So I'm going to hit the W key again. Hit the Command Z a few times, put that back there. And I would spend a little bit more time on this, playing around with, definitely some different typefaces. I'd have to look at some, upload some, load them. But here's basically one of the ways you play with InDesign. You can also play with color. If I wanted to make this a different color, I can go to swatches. Now you're limited to how many swatches you have because this one doesn't, this is a preset. But if you go to the flyout menu, you can tell it to create a new color swatch. And you can use Pantone process. Hopefully mine is loaded. Let's see. I may have to load my Pantone process. So let's do Pantone. Oh gosh. Pantone CMYK coded. There we go. Okay, they've changed it a little bit. It used to be called Pantone process. So if you have an old software, it's going to say Pantone process coded. The new software says Pantone CMYK coded. Now if I wanted this to be a yellow, I could make it a yellow. Now I happen to know that 5-1 is more of a yellowy color. And this is the new bridge, so they've changed the color palettes since the old ones. So I just might want to look through here and see what kind of colors I want. Now if you want that color, you can add it, and it's over here in your swatches panel. And assuming the type is selected, you can fill it with that color. So the type is filled with yellow. If you wanted to, you could fill the text box with a color, but that usually looks pretty bad. See, that looks not so good. Okay, so I could also fill that type. See, I'm clicking on the T tool right here with paper. Okay, so paper, black, yellow, any color that I put in here. Again, to get the Pantone swatches, which is what we use in the industry, you go to the flyout menu. It's little tiny hatch marks up there. New color swatch, and use Pantone process coded or Pantone CMYK coded, and choose your color. Hit add, and when you're done, you can add more, but when you're done, you hit done. Of course, purple doesn't read on there at all, so don't use colors that are low in contrast. Okay, so I'm going to save this and call it jump 1. Save as an InDesign document. And if you're loading them as PDFs, you just go to File, Adobe PDF Preset, smallest file size for online stuff. And I hit Save. And over here you just hit Export. Okay. And I want you to load both the InDesign file and the PDFs. Alright, excuse me, let me get this out of here so you can see that I have an InDesign file. I need to organize my stuff better. And I have a PDF. Here's what the PDF looks like, opening in Acrobat. Shouldn't be too much of a big deal there. And if I open the jump file, it'll just open InDesign. Okay, so that concludes how to work with an image and text in InDesign.